My wife cheated with a motel lover, so I faked a transfer, disappeared, and took everything back. Before Jim Fox's life took an unexpected turn, things had seemed deceptively normal. Just a few months prior, he was celebrating his 20th wedding anniversary with Helen at their favorite Italian restaurant. They toasted to their years together, reminiscing about how they had built a life from scratch, weathered job losses, parenting struggles, and financial hardships. Jim believed they were as solid as ever. In hindsight, however, he realized there had been signs, small, seemingly insignificant things that hinted at something deeper beneath the surface. Helen had been distracted, her phone always in her hand, responding to messages with a slight smile that wasn't meant for him. The laughter that used to fill their conversations had dwindled into mere polite exchanges. Jim, ever the optimist, had ignored those warning signals. It wasn't until late September that things started feeling truly off. Helen's work schedule at Home Depot became erratic, with last-minute manager meetings that stretched late into the night. Jim had brushed it off at first. After all, corporate changes were frequent, and Helen had always been a dedicated employee. But then came the little things, the way she'd rush to the bathroom to freshen up before heading out, the newfound perfume scent lingering on her clothes, the unexplained withdrawals from their joint account. Emily, their daughter, seemed restless as well, dodging his questions about school and spending more time away from home. Jim chalked it up to senior year stress. He was willing to excuse anything as long as it meant keeping the peace. Then there was Labor Day weekend. Jim had taken the family to his brother's lake house in upstate Pennsylvania, hoping for a quiet getaway. But Helen had been distant, checking her phone frequently, stepping away to take calls in hushed tones. Emily, too, had been unusually quiet, as if she were carrying a secret she wasn't ready to share. When Jim asked what was wrong, Helen had snapped at him, a rare outburst from a woman who was normally composed. "Nothing's wrong, Jim. Stop overanalyzing everything," she said. He had let it go, pushing aside his growing suspicions. But as the days went on, that nagging feeling of unease refused to dissipate. Then came the night in mid-October when Jim had woken up at 2 a.m. to find Helen wasn't in bed. He had walked downstairs to see her on the couch, whispering into her phone, her voice laced with an excitement he hadn't heard in years. When she noticed him, she hurriedly ended the call, fumbling with an excuse about a work emergency. Jim hadn't believed her. That was the moment he knew something was deeply wrong. He just didn't know how bad it would get. Jim Fox never expected his day to turn upside down so quickly. That morning, he woke up exhausted after a restless night, dreading how to tell his daughter Emily that he had caught her boyfriend kissing one of her so-called friends at the mall. If they had just been talking, he might have brushed it off, but the way they acted had made it clear they were more than friends. Jim knew Emily would be devastated. Keeping it from her was never an option, but the timing mattered. She had a big volleyball semifinal that afternoon, and he didn't want to throw her off. He decided to wait until after the game, maybe on the way home. But by midday, Jim's world flipped in a way he hadn't expected. His boss called him into the office to introduce Ralph Jenkins, a man he had never seen before. Shaking Ralph's hand, Jim had no idea what was coming. "Jim," his boss said, "we just finalized the purchase of precision buffers in Daytona Beach. Ralph here is the former owner. Starting next year, we want you to lead the maintenance team. I know you've been frustrated with your growth opportunities, but congratulations, you've just been promoted." Jim blinked, struggling to process it. His boss continued, "Between Thanksgiving and New Year's, you'll work with Ralph to meet the team and get up to speed. You know the equipment inside out, so it'll be an easy transition. Only catch, you'd need to relocate to Daytona Beach." Before Jim could respond, his boss added, "Oh, and the purchase included a 2-bedroom apartment. It's rent-free for a year. You're also getting a 25% salary increase. How long do you need to think it over?" Jim didn't hesitate. "I'm in. My wife hates Pennsylvania winters. She was terrified I'd get sent to Michigan. She'll be thrilled." His boss grinned. "Great. Take my car, drop Ralph at the airport, and take the rest of the day off." Jim chuckled as he watched Ralph disappear into the terminal. For the first time in a while, everything seemed to be falling into place. Emily could finish high school in Daytona, and she'd have an easy way out of her toxic relationship. Life was finally looking up. Then it wasn't. Driving back, Jim's thoughts were interrupted when he spotted a familiar car, Helen's red Camry. Normally, he wouldn't think twice. But just last week, someone had backed into it at her work, leaving the front grille mangled and exposing the radiator. As he passed the Best Western near the airport, he saw a red Camry with the same damage parked in front. His stomach dropped. He pulled into the lot and parked beside it, staring. Why was Helen's car at a motel? His mind raced. He wasn't the kind of man to jump to conclusions, but if Helen didn't have a good reason for being there, things were about to get messy. He had one advantage: Helen wouldn't recognize the car he was driving. The dark-tinted windows gave him cover. He decided to wait and see who came out with her. But waiting wasn't enough. He needed a plan. He remembered Helen's spare tire was still in the garage. He had fixed it days ago, but hadn't put it back. If she found a flat, she'd have no choice but to call him. Perfect. Jim grabbed a jackknife, slipped out of the car, and punctured the valve stem on her rear tire. Within seconds, it was flat. He slid back into his seat, watching the door. Half an hour later, he heard her voice. "Damn it, what now?" "No worries, beautiful," a man replied. Jim's heart clenched. "I don't have a spare," Helen said. "Jim left it in the garage." "What an idiot." The man scoffed. "I always make sure my wife's car is ready. Now I regret coming with you instead of handling my own stuff." "So what do we do?" Helen asked. "Let's go back inside and figure it out," he suggested. Jim waited for Helen's call. It never came. Then a Honda Civic pulled in. His heart dropped even further. Emily had arrived. She walked up to a motel door, knocked, and after a brief conversation, returned to her car. Jim watched as she retrieved a spare tire from her trunk and set it beside the Camry. Helen and her companion stepped outside. "Frank, take care of this. Emily has a game tonight," Helen said. "Thanks, but if you really cared about me, you'd have been dressed when I got here," Emily shot back. "I need to get to school. You deal with it." "No problem, Ma," Frank replied. "I'll be at your game cheering you on. Sit away from Mom. Dad will be there, and I don't want drama." "Your dad won't figure it out," Frank laughed. "Even if he did, he wouldn't do anything. He knows better." "Frank, stop," Helen snapped. "Jim is my husband and Emily's father. Show respect." Emily glared at her mother. "Respect? Do you think sneaking around in motels is respectful? I just want to graduate before Dad divorces you." "There won't be a divorce," Helen insisted. "I love your father," Emily scoffed. "You're delusional. Dad won't let this slide, and Frank, he's not worth it." Helen shrugged. "I deserve some fun after everything I've given to this marriage." "Dad's given just as much, probably more," Emily shot back. "And he's faithful." Helen laughed. "Your father? Please. He was too shy to even ask me out for weeks. He'd never cheat," Emily sighed. "He's good because he's loyal, unlike Frank." "That's enough," Helen snapped. "Go get ready for your game." Emily rolled her eyes. "Keep Frank away from Dad. He might surprise you." She drove off, leaving Helen and Frank to deal with the flat. "She's not thrilled for us," Frank muttered. "No daughter would be," Helen admitted. "But she won't tell. That would ruin everything." Jim sat in the back seat of the company car, numb. Finding out about Helen's affair was bad enough, but realizing Emily knew and accepted it hit him harder than he expected. Shaking off the shock, he remembered Emily's volleyball match. He'd never missed a game, but today, he couldn't bring himself to go. Instead, he picked up his truck and headed home. He had no appetite and didn't want to face Helen or Emily. Cracking open a few beers, he tried to process everything. Just that morning, life seemed perfect. Now, everything was unraveling. He wondered if Helen would still want to move to Daytona now that Frank was involved. The more he thought about it, the more bitter he felt. He had always been loyal, worked hard to provide for his family. He didn't deserve this. What he had thought was affection from Helen since Labor Day now seemed like nothing but a cover-up. Then it hit him. Helen didn't know he was being transferred to Florida. If he told her, she'd assume it was Michigan. She wouldn't want to move to Florida, especially not around Thanksgiving. He could go to Daytona, settle into the apartment, and get some space to think things through. It wasn't revenge, but it was a start. Jim decided he'd leave after Thanksgiving. By then, Helen and Emily would think he was heading north. The idea of escaping to Florida gave him some relief. That night, after taking Dramamine and a couple of beers, Jim settled in the guest room to sleep. He needed to escape from his thoughts for a while. Later that evening, Emily came home, noticing Jim's truck. "Dad's home? Weird. He missed my game," she said. Helen frowned when she saw the empty beer cans. "That's not like Jim," she said, then searched the house until she found him passed out in the guest room. "I think he's drunk," Emily whispered, looking at her dad. "Why'd he miss my game?" "Let's not make it worse," Helen sighed. "Maybe he's coming down with something," she added. "Frank thinks you have scholarship potential." "I don't care what Frank thinks," Emily snapped. "He's an idiot." The next morning, Jim left early, stopping by IHOP for breakfast. His phone buzzed with a call from Helen. "Jim, are you okay? You missed Emily's game, slept in the guest room, and left early this morning." "What's going on?" Jim replied flatly, just trying to be spontaneous, before hanging up and turning off his phone. At the plant, Jim packed up his tools and belongings. He couldn't change the past, but he could take control of his future. Florida was his fresh start. When he returned home, Helen confronted him. "Don't hang up on me again. You missed Emily's game, got drunk, passed out, and then snuck out. Now you want dinner? Forget it." Jim, now indifferent, simply nodded and walked out. He spent the evening at a sports bar, enjoying the solitude, eating ribs, drinking beer, and chatting about football. He didn't return until almost 11 p.m. Helen and Emily were on the couch watching a movie. "So, you decided to show up," Helen sneered. "Don't expect to sleep in my bed until you apologize." Jim calmly walked past them, grabbed his things for the next day, and settled into the guest room without another word. "Maybe he likes sleeping in the guest room," Emily observed after he left. Helen smirked. "He won't last 2 nights before crawling back to me." "Maybe he knows when he's had enough," Emily replied quietly. "I just hope he never finds out about Frank." Helen snapped. "Stop bringing him up. I'm keeping this secret." Helen glared at Emily, hoping for some remorse for her words. When Emily first discovered her affair with Frank, Helen thought it might simplify things. One less person to deceive. Emily, always the more perceptive one, agreed to stay silent to avoid a divorce. But over time, Emily grew increasingly defiant, making it harder to juggle the roles of mother and secret lover. Jim, on the other hand, was a puzzle. His distant behavior confused Helen. He hadn't shown anger, but his coldness and stubbornness unsettled her. She was sure he would eventually come around. After all, the passion they shared was too strong for him to stay away forever. On Sunday, Jim got up early, had breakfast at IHOP, and took a long walk in the park. He reveled in the crisp November air, knowing Florida's warmth was just around the corner. Returning home before noon, he grabbed a six-pack, turned on the TV, and settled in for the Eagles game. Helen ignored him at first, but eventually stormed out, not returning until late afternoon. By the time the late games ended, there was still no dinner. Jim switched off the TV, left the house, and went to his favorite sports bar for ribs and more football. The Eagles had beaten the Giants, and for the first time in days, Jim found himself smiling. He was already looking forward to the Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys. "Dad's been acting weird," Emily commented to Helen. "He never misses a Sunday game. Did you two fight?" "We barely spoke," Helen replied. "I told him he needed to apologize for missing your game and drinking too much before he could sleep in our bed. He'll come around." That evening, Jim came home quietly, walked past them, and retreated to the guest room. He undressed and slipped into bed, ignoring both of them. The next few days were tense. Jim remained distant, showing no signs of softening. Helen was unsettled by his silence, and when she met Frank at the motel on Tuesday, she got another flat tire. 2 flats at the same place couldn't be a coincidence. Helen vowed to avoid that motel in the future, though Frank quickly fixed the tire since she had repaired the spare the day before. Meanwhile, Jim spent Monday packing for his move. By Tuesday morning, all his personal belongings and tools were in the truck, and he rearranged his closet so it still looked full. "Wonder if Helen will notice I didn't pack any winter clothes," he thought. Jim parked outside Home Depot on both Monday and Tuesday afternoons, watching Helen leave work. She followed her usual routine: grocery store, then home. Satisfied, Jim went to the bar for dinner and Monday night football. "Dad's not coming home again?" Emily asked Helen later. "He's not talking to me," Helen sighed. "I have no idea what's going on." "Maybe he figured out what's going on with you," Emily snapped. "You won't cook for him, won't let him sleep with you, and rush off to please Frank. Looks like he's the one in control." "At least Frank treats me with respect," Helen shot back. "Of course he does. He's getting everything he wants," Emily retorted. "But does he take out the trash, pay the bills?" "No, Dad does all that, and Frank gets rewarded for just showing up." "Watch your tone," Helen snapped. "Dad deserves your respect and your loyalty," Emily retorted. "But he's not getting either." That night, Emily tried to talk to Jim. "Our championship game is tomorrow. Can you come?" "I'll check my schedule," Jim replied coldly, heading upstairs. The next evening, Emily returned home, only to break down in tears. "His truck's here. He could have come to my game. Why is he mad at me?" Helen hugged her. "Let's find out what's going on." They entered the house to find another empty six-pack, but no Jim. They found him in the guest room, asleep, unresponsive to their attempts to wake him. "Tomorrow's Thanksgiving." "Will you let Dad eat with us?" Emily asked. "Of course, this is his home," Helen replied. "I hope he behaves." "Everyone's coming around 4. "Who else did you invite?" Emily asked. "Please don't say Frank." "Frank and his wife will be here," Helen said confidently. "I think Jim and Frank will get along. They both love football and hunting. They have one thing in common, you," Emily shot back. "This won't end well." "We'll see," Helen said, smiling smugly. "You might be surprised." Thanksgiving morning, Jim woke early and grabbed breakfast at a small diner. By 9 a.m., he was home, greeted by the scents of turkey, gravy, and pies. "We're eating at noon," Helen said as he walked in. "Our parents will be here soon. Want a drink?" Jim declined, walked to the living room, and turned on the TV. He knew Helen was trying to smooth things over, but he wasn't interested. When her parents arrived, he greeted them warmly. They'd always treated him well. A few minutes later, his own parents showed up. As they gathered at the table, passing dishes, Jim cleared his throat. "I've got an announcement," he said. "I'm being transferred to another plant. I leave tomorrow. It'll be through the spring, maybe longer." Helen froze. Why hadn't he told her sooner? She couldn't just leave, especially if it was Michigan. Is that why he's been acting so distant? She knew she wouldn't quit her job for freezing temperatures up north. "That's a surprise," Helen's mom said. Helen didn't mention it. "Are you going alone, or will you wait to see if it's permanent?" "I'll go alone," Jim replied. "I won't make Emily switch schools, and Helen can't leave her job. I'll be fine for a few months." The conversation shifted to how harsh Michigan winters could be. Helen and Emily exchanged a look, both realizing Jim was upset about leaving his family for the cold. It explained his mood. After dinner, Jim, his dad, and Helen's father watched the second half of the Eagles game. The Cowboys were dominating, and the frustration was palpable. Then the doorbell rang. Helen's voice cut through the silence. "Hey everyone, I'd like you to meet some friends. This is Nancy and her husband Frank." Helen introduced everyone, leaving Jim for last. When Frank walked up, Jim stood. Frank, grinning, wore a Dallas Cowboys sweater with Romo on the back. His smug smile only grew as he extended his hand. "Hey Jimmy, I've heard a lot about you." Jim kept his cool until he saw Frank's shirt. The disrespect, the rivalry jersey, and the affair with Helen pushed him over the edge. Without thinking, Jim kicked Frank square in the groin, sending him to the floor. As Frank bent over, Jim kneed him in the face, the sickening crack of his nose breaking, filling the room. The room was silent for a moment, then Nancy screamed and rushed to Frank. Helen ran to the bathroom, throwing up, while Emily grabbed ice for Frank. Jim stood, stunned by what he'd just done. He felt the weight of everyone's stares. Without a word, he grabbed his coat and left, driving south until he hit Highway 77 in Virginia. He checked into a motel in Hillsville and collapsed into bed. The next morning, Jim checked his phone. His voicemail inbox was full. After hearing a few messages, one from his mom, another from Helen, and one from Emily, all demanding answers, he deleted them all. Sticking to his plan, Jim continued south on Highway 77. His mind replayed the events. Frank had deserved it, but what now? Would the police come after him? Would he lose his job? Would Helen divorce him? Jim realized he needed to listen to his messages to understand the fallout. He left his phone on but didn't answer any calls, opting to check the voicemails when the callers gave up. Less than 30 minutes later, his phone rang. It was Helen. He let it go to voicemail and then listened to the message. "Jim, please call me. I know you're upset about the transfer, but you need to call. Calm down. Frank will be fine, though he needs surgery for his nose. He won't press charges. Please, just call me." Jim drove all day, reaching his new apartment around 5 p.m. Using the code in his email, he retrieved the key and entered. By 7 p.m., he'd unpacked, parked his truck in the garage, and gone to bed. The next 2 days, Jim fixed minor issues in the apartment, but worry crept in. What if Helen found out where he was and decided to follow him? He couldn't risk that. So, on Saturday, he called her. "Hello?" Helen's voice was sharp. "Helen, it's Jim. Where the hell are you? We called all night. Frank's got a broken nose and a concussion." "Are you insane? When are you—" Jim hung up mid-rant, turned off his phone, and made a shopping list. An hour later, he returned with a new lock, air filter, cleaning supplies, and a 30-pack of beer. At noon, he called Emily. "Hey, Dad," Emily answered. "Glad you called. Things went nuts after you knocked out Frank. The ambulance took him to the hospital, and both sets of grandparents thought you'd lost it. Mom was freaking out about a lawsuit. I had to clean the blood off the floor while she went to the hospital. I think she apologized 100 times. "Anything else happened?" Jim asked casually. "Not much." "Oh, Mom's furious you hung up on her again. She's still going off about it." "Yeah, I could tell," Jim chuckled. "That's why I called. I'm starting my new job Monday. If anyone asks where I am like the cops, don't worry." Emily laughed. "Frank's not pressing charges, though his wife probably wanted to. You're safe. But seriously, why keep the transfer a secret? Is that why you've been acting weird?" Jim paused. "The transfer made me rethink things. I realized that if I don't respect myself, no one else will. I've lost my way, but I'm finding it again. Are you okay, Dad? No health issues, right? Nothing to worry about?" Emily's voice softened. "I'm fine. You and your mom know what my problems are," Jim replied quietly. "Just tell her I'm settled and not to worry." "Okay, Dad, I'll call you sometimes. Will you answer?" Jim hesitated, torn between his lingering love for his daughter and the betrayal he felt due to her involvement in deceiving him. It wasn't easy to overlook, yet he couldn't bring himself to sever all ties with her completely. He finally spoke, his voice steady but reluctant. "If you call when I'm not at work, I'll pick up." Emily's voice came through, cautious but curious. "What about Mom? Will you talk to her?" Jim's tone grew more guarded. "If she just wants to yell, don't bother. But if it's about the house or family, she can call. That's fair, right?" Emily nodded, her agreement clear in her voice. That's how it should be, she paused before adding. Good luck with the new job. Is it cold there? Actually, the weather's better than I expected, Jim replied. I'll be fine. Bye, Em. As soon as Emily hung up, Helen bombarded her with questions. What did he say? Did he apologize? Is he avoiding coming home? Did he mention me? He's not scared, Emily replied. He said if he doesn't respect himself, no one else will. That's why he took down Frank and keeps hanging up on you. If you want to talk to him, you'll have to show more respect. Respect? He attacked a guest over a t-shirt. I'll give him a piece of my mind next time I talk to him, Helen snapped. That's exactly what he means, Emily shot back. If you keep acting like that, he'll just hang up again. Frank's the only one getting anything from you, unless you pick up a few more boyfriends. Why are you being so nasty? Helen asked, her patience running out. Because you're rude and disrespectful, Emily fired back. Frank acted like an idiot, and Dad put him in his place. No one should come into your home and mock you, especially not your wife's lover. He doesn't know about Frank, Helen protested. He didn't need to. Frank acted like an idiot, and Dad snapped. Any man would have done the same. I'm done listening to this, Helen yelled. You live in my house, and you'll respect me whether you think I deserve it or not. Meanwhile, Jim was lounging by the pool Wednesday evening when his phone rang. Seeing it was Helen, he let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, he listened to her message. Jim, I know you're screening my calls. Please call me back. We need to figure out what to do with the house. Who's shoveling snow? Should we sign a fuel contract? And which company to use? Call me. Since she sounded calm, Jim decided to return her call. She had practical concerns, and he didn't want Helen or Emily struggling with things he usually handled. Thanks for calling, Jim, Helen said. I'm worried about the stuff you usually take care of around the house. With winter coming, can you tell me what I need to do? I'll email you a list, Jim promised. I should have done that sooner. You're coming home for Christmas, right? Helen asked. Mom and Dad want us there for dinner. Your parents expect to see us Christmas Eve. They keep asking if I've heard from you. It's awkward when I say no. They complain you won't answer their calls. I'm not sure yet, Jim said. I'll try if I can, but you can tell them I'll come when they stop treating me like the bad guy. I won't deal with their insults. Every voicemail, even from my mom, is full of threats. I don't need that. Okay, I'll tell them, but I don't think it'll help, Helen replied. They're still upset about how you treated Frank and how you disappeared after. Then why should I come back for Christmas? Jim shot back. I'm not going to sit there while your parents or mine treat me like I'm guilty. If they want me there because they enjoy my company, fine. But if it's just to lecture me, forget it. You can still come home, Helen said softly, her voice breaking. Emily and I would love to see you. We won't say anything stupid, I promise. Don't you miss being with me? Jim felt indifferent. The thought of Helen with Frank eliminated any romantic feelings he had. Still, he considered his response. I used to enjoy being with you, Jim said carefully, leaving out the fact that it only felt special because he hadn't known she was cheating. Me too, Helen sobbed. You're the best lover I've ever had. I miss you. Please come home for Christmas. Stay the whole week. I'll try, Jim said. They don't give time off easily during the holidays, but I'll let you know. I'll also email you the list of stuff you need to handle. Helen hung up, smiling. Best lover in the world, huh? Emily teased. Better hope Frank didn't hear that. He probably thinks he's at the top of your list, and probably his wife's too. I told you to stop talking about Frank like that, Helen snapped. Your father is better than Frank. That wasn't a lie. Frank's fun but not better. Yeah, Dad will be thrilled to hear that, Emily said sarcastically. His wife thinks he's better than her other lovers. That's something to brag about. Helen didn't respond, leaving the room in tears. Emily shook her head and watched her go. Meanwhile, Jim was enjoying his new life. He spent his afternoons by the pool, getting a nice tan and feeling more relaxed with each day. He quickly got the hang of the plant's equipment and felt confident in his role. The biggest surprise, though, was the number of single, divorced, or widowed women in his condo complex. They all seemed to enjoy his company. Once word spread that he was good with tools, he was constantly in demand. He didn't mind. These women always repaid him with baked goods, home-cooked meals, or bottles of wine and beer left at his door. A few days before Christmas, Helen began pressuring Jim to finalize his holiday plans. After finishing a repair at Mrs. Struthers' house, Jim turned to find her standing without clothes by the bed. Thanks for your help, Jim, she said with a seductive smile. I don't have much money, but I have other ways to show my appreciation. Want to help? Jim hesitated. He'd never cheated on Helen. She was the only woman he'd been with. But Susan Struthers, with her long legs and toned curves, was hard to ignore. Susan, I need to figure out where my marriage stands, Jim replied. After Christmas, I'll know. I've never cheated on my wife, but if things don't work out, I might take you up on your offer. But right now, the chances of fixing my marriage don't look good. I understand, Susan said, slipping on her robe. That idiot wife of yours doesn't know what she had. I'll be here if you need me. And you're not the only one who's got admirers around here. We all love you. Kind, helpful, and trustworthy. If things fall apart, you'll have plenty of us ready to cheer you up, she added with a wink. That evening, Jim called Helen and said he tried to make it home by Christmas Eve. She was excited, which surprised him. He missed her and Emily, and he knew he needed to settle things one way or another. He packed up and headed north 3 days before Christmas. He planned to drive halfway the first day, shop the second, and arrive home by Christmas Eve. He'd even stop by his parents for dinner if things got too tense. He could always leave. At around 9 p.m., Jim pulled into his driveway and noticed several cars parked there. It was clear Helen was hosting her usual holiday party for her Home Depot co-workers. As he approached the front door, he glanced through the kitchen window and saw Frank. Not wanting to confront him or ruin the party, Jim quietly entered through the basement door. He figured he could stay out of sight until Frank left. He lay down on an old couch he had salvaged, but after nearly 2 hours, he woke up. Listening closely, Jim heard nothing from upstairs. Curious, he stepped outside to see if the guests had left. Only one unfamiliar car remained in the driveway. He crept to the front of the house and peeked into the kitchen again. This time, he saw Helen with Frank, his hand on her chest, kissing her deeply. Fury erupted inside Jim, but he held himself back from charging in and attacking Frank. I got away with it once, but not again, he thought. Instead, he decided to catch them in the act, snap photos, and confront Helen before heading back to Florida. It seemed like the perfect plan, but things didn't go as planned. Jim crept upstairs, entered the guest room, turned off the lights, and cracked the door open. About 20 minutes later, Helen came upstairs and entered the master bedroom. He heard the shower start. She's cleaning up for him, Jim thought bitterly. Then an idea hit him. Jim snuck into the hallway, turned off the lamp in the master bedroom, and returned to the guest room. When Frank was about a third of the way up the stairs, Jim flipped off the hallway light. The upstairs was now pitch black. In the faint streetlight, Jim could barely make out Frank's figure. Frank muttered something under his breath but kept climbing. Jim stepped out of the guest room, positioning himself at the top of the stairs. When Frank reached the third step from the top, Jim kicked him square in the jaw. The force of the kick sent Frank flying backward. Jim watched as Frank tumbled down the stairs, hitting the bottom with a sickening thud, landing motionless in the living room. Frank didn't move. Jim could still hear the shower running upstairs. Helen hadn't heard a thing. As his anger began to fade, the reality set in. If Frank dies, I'm screwed, he thought. Without wasting a second, Jim rushed down the stairs, stepped over Frank's limp body, and left the house. 2 hours later, Jim was 100 miles away, putting as much distance between himself and the chaos. Near dawn, he checked into a cheap motel, paid in cash, and collapsed onto the bed. After 4 restless hours of sleep, he hit the road again, replaying the events in his head. I attacked a man. This could get serious if Frank doesn't make it. How did it come to this? Jim wondered. He knew that if he stayed near Helen and Frank, it would eventually land him in prison. They're not worth it, he thought, but despite that realization, a hollow feeling crept in. He missed Helen and Emily, even after everything. Around noon, Jim's phone rang. Seeing his parents' number, he let it go to voicemail. He wasn't ready to explain why he'd missed Christmas Eve dinner or gone after Frank again. After a few minutes, he finally listened to the message. Jim, it's your dad. Call us when you get this. There's been some trouble at your house. Helen and Emily are fine, but you need to hear what happened. Jim's heart raced as he dialed his father's number. Hey, Dad, I just got your message. What's going on? Jim asked, voice tight with concern. His father's tone was serious as he responded. Frank showed up at your house again last night. He fell down the stairs pretty badly, broken jaw, arm, ribs, and a concussion. But here's the twist. His wife found out where he was. She thought he was working late. She showed up just before the paramedics took him. She was furious, slapped Helen, called her every name under the sun, and even tried to throw Frank off the stretcher before the cops stopped her. It was a mess. Jim fell silent, stunned by the news. His father continued, unbothered by the pause. This takes me back to Thanksgiving when you kicked him. We thought it was about a Cowboys jersey, but now we get it. Your mom and I owe you an apology. We should have trusted you had a reason. Honestly, you showed more restraint than I would have. Thanks, Dad, Jim said quietly, still processing. How's Emily? Was she home when all this happened? She wasn't. She was at our house, his father replied. We had a serious talk with her this morning. She admitted she knew about Helen and Frank. She said she was trying to keep the family together until she graduated. We're disappointed, Jim. Your mom told her she betrayed you, just like Helen did. There were a lot of tears, but in the end we hugged it out. Thanks for helping her see things, Dad. I appreciate it, Jim responded. There was a brief pause before his father's voice softened. Where are you really, son? You told us Michigan, but I'm thinking you might just be hiding out nearby. Moving to Michigan in December seems extreme. Jim chuckled, the tension easing slightly. I'm not in Michigan, Dad. The company bought a plant in Daytona Beach. I got promoted, a raise, and they gave me an apartment. I'm the maintenance supervisor. His father's surprise was clear in his voice. In Florida? Well, damn, that's great. Mind if we visit in February? We'll be tired of the cold by then. Of course, Dad. You're welcome anytime. Just don't tell Helen where I am. I'm not ready to deal with her yet. Don't worry, son. We're done with her too, his father assured him. But you should talk to Emily. She thinks you've been distant because you knew about Helen's affair. Yeah, I'll call her soon, Jim said, the weight of his words hanging heavy. Thanks again, Dad. I love you guys. That evening, Jim returned to his apartment, his first Christmas alone. The weight of it hit him hard. He cracked open a beer, collapsed on the couch, and stared blankly at the TV. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Susan Struthers, the widow from his complex, smiling warmly. I saw your light on and wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas, she said softly. It's tough to be alone on Christmas, and since you're back, I'm guessing things with your wife aren't worked out. That's a safe bet, Jim replied, stepping aside to let her in. Her boyfriend decided to make himself at home in my bed. I hate crowds, unless it's a couple of women. What about just one woman? Susan teased, her eyes twinkling. I might make you move, but I'm sure you won't mind. Jim paused, considering. I'd like that, but I should warn you, it's been a while. I might be rusty. If I was any good, my wife wouldn't have strayed. I doubt you were the problem, Susan said, stepping closer. A guy as kind as you? I'm sure you're great in the bedroom. Do you have rubbers? Jim asked, realizing he was way out of practice. No, Susan laughed. Haven't needed those in 20 years. Well, looks like I have a lot to learn about dating, Jim grinned. And I'm happy to teach you, she whispered, pulling him closer. That's how Jim spent Christmas Eve, swapping anger and hurt for new, happier memories. The sting of betrayal from Helen and Emily slowly faded as his confidence grew. The pain was still there, but he realized he was finally moving on. People made mistakes, even those he loved. Susan quietly slipped out before dawn on Christmas morning to avoid gossip, but promised to meet him at the pool later that evening. After a home-cooked meal and another round of lovemaking, Jim returned to his apartment by 9 p.m. to keep the rumors in check. A few neighbors had already noticed, but he didn't care. Shortly after he got home, Jim's phone rang. Dad, you didn't come home for Christmas, but I don't blame you, Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. Mom's a wreck, and I feel terrible too. I'm sorry for everything we did to you. I knew it was wrong, but I was selfish. I just wanted you to stay until I graduated. It's in the past, Jim replied, though the hurt was clear in his voice. You both hurt me. I didn't know your mom was that unhappy, and I never imagined you'd help her hide it. I'm trying to move on, but it's tough. The weird part is, Mom wasn't unhappy, Emily whispered. She always said you were a great husband, father, and lover. She just wanted something else, and now she regrets it all. Did you know about Frank and Mom when she invited him over on Thanksgiving? Yes, Emily admitted. I should have apologized for snapping, but when Frank shoved it in my face, I lost control. I just couldn't stand how they treated you. I understand, Jim said softly. Honestly, I was glad I kicked him. I saw that smug look, and I knew he was gloating. Mom kept saying it was about the Cowboys shirt, but I knew better. Did you miss my last 2 games because you were mad at me? She asked. Yes, Jim confessed. I'm sorry, but when I heard Frank say he'd be cheering for you, I knew I couldn't be there. Otherwise, I'd probably be in jail by now. Were you there when I brought the spare tire to the motel? You cut the valve stem, didn't you? You wanted Mom to call you so you could confront her, and I walked right into it. I'm so sorry, Dad. I was selfish and stupid. Don't blame yourself, Jim replied. I should have confronted your mom then, but I realized I've got some anger issues. I probably would have hurt both of them. I don't think you'd ever hurt a woman, Dad, Emily said softly, especially not Mom. Frank's another story. Did Grandpa tell you about Frank? Jim asked. He fell down the stairs last night. He's pretty banged up, but he should recover. By the way, Emily changed the subject. I found the new laptop you left me for Thanksgiving. I just found it in the basement. Thanks. I'll use it a lot for college next year. I'm glad you like it, Jim said, realizing he'd forgotten about the gifts. Did you find the one for your mom, too? She cried when she saw the pearls. She felt terrible about how she treated you. I didn't even know about the gifts until I was looking for Christmas lights. Thanks for being such a great kid, Jim said, his voice softening. I'm just starting to realize how much you've appreciated what I've done. Don't worry, Jim chuckled. When I was your age, I thought my parents were clueless. They got a lot smarter as I got older. I love you, Dad. Maybe I'll find a way to visit you in Florida this winter. Jim hesitated. Well, I didn't tell you everything about my transfer. The company bought a plant in Daytona Beach. That's where I'm living now. If you want to visit, I've got a spare room. There's a pool outside, and the ocean's just a few blocks away." "You're kidding," Emily gasped. "If we'd known, Mom and I would have gone with you. But I guess you didn't want us there after everything that's happened." "You don't have to tell Mom," Jim added, "but it's not really a secret anymore. I'll email her my address so we can sort out the divorce by mail. I'm not coming back." "Are you going to divorce Mom?" Emily asked quietly. "I understand if you do. I warned her about Frank, but she thought you'd never find out. I just wish things were different. Good night, Dad. I'll probably visit soon. That'd be great. Good night, Em. Merry Christmas." Just as Emily ended the call, Helen walked in. "Did I hear that right? Your dad's not in Michigan?" Helen snapped. "Where is he? Why did he lie?" "He's in Daytona Beach," Emily answered calmly. "He didn't lie. He said he was transferred, and that's true. We just assumed it was Michigan because we didn't know about Daytona. He didn't tell us because he was at the motel when you called for the spare tire. He heard everything," Helen spat. "That's why he didn't care what we thought." "Why didn't he say anything then? Was he scared of Frank? Scared of Frank?" Emily shot back. Dad flattened Frank. "Frank's no match for him, either in a fight or as a husband. Stop trying to find flaws in Dad to justify what you did. Maybe don't treat your next husband the way you treated him." "Next husband?" Helen's voice cracked. "What did he say?" "He's had enough of your lies and cheating. Divorce is next. He'll never go through with it. Once he realizes I don't want a divorce," Helen insisted. "I don't even like Frank. This wouldn't have happened if he hadn't fallen down the stairs." "You still don't get it," Emily said coldly. "You were done the day I brought that spare tire to the motel. Dad saw everything, and he knew exactly how little respect we had for him. You lied, you cheated. By Thanksgiving, you were already a walking divorce. Frank's not to blame," Helen muttered. "I just want Jim back." The next day, things got worse. "Mom got a letter from the health department," Emily said when she called her dad. "Frank tested positive for an STD while he was in the hospital. Mom has to get tested and list everyone she's been with. You're on that list. You'll probably get a letter soon." "Well," Jim sighed, "I should have seen that coming. I'll schedule a test today. Thanks for letting me know, Em." Jim made an appointment right away. He was grateful Susan had insisted on protection. On his way home, he picked up several packs of rubbers. When he got back, he put them in a bowl on his nightstand. "No woman will get sick because of me," he promised himself. When the test results came back, Jim was relieved to find he was clean. His free time quickly filled with requests from the condo's single women for help around their homes. One evening, he mentioned this to Susan, who laughed and admitted she'd told a couple of friends how capable he was in bed. Word spread. Jim found himself regularly refilling the rubber bowl. Every woman who came to his apartment inspected it, picking a few with a smile. His reputation was growing in more ways than one. One afternoon, just before Easter, Jim opened his door to find Emily standing there with a small suitcase. Before he could speak, she threw her arms around him. "I'm so sorry, Dad. Please forgive me. Can I stay for a few days?" "If you don't want me here, I'll go," she whispered. Jim hugged her back. "I'm just surprised to see you. Come on in. You're always welcome here." "You look more grown up," Jim said, smiling. "Finally filled out in the right places." Emily laughed, spinning around. "I'm the same bra size as Mom, but it probably fits me better now. She's gotten so skinny. I hitched a ride with the Shears. They're heading to Orlando, but they dropped me off," Emily explained. "It's spring break. I'll only be here for 4 days before heading back north. This place is great. I bet you love living here. It's smaller than the house, but it has everything I need, including a heated pool right outside," Jim replied, watching her look around. When Emily saw the bowl of rubbers in his bedroom, she raised an eyebrow. "Looks like you're getting everything you need. Good for you, Dad. You deserve some fun after everything." "Don't worry," Emily joked. "I'll just soak up some sun while you're at work." "The sun? I think I saw it once, maybe 2 summers ago." "Tomorrow we'll go out for dinner," Jim said. "There are some great spots around here. Ribs, steaks, seafood. I'll take you to one where the guys from work hang out. They'll be jealous when they see how beautiful my daughter is." The next evening, Jim and Emily sat at a rib joint, laughing and enjoying their meal. "Dad, why did you forgive me?" Emily asked, her eyes filled with emotion. "If I were you, I'm not sure I could. Helping Mom cheat on you was awful. I hate myself for it, and I'm really sorry." Jim smiled softly. "It's simple. I'm happier when you're around. Selfishly, that's enough for me. Being with you makes my life better, and I've learned to prioritize that." "I'm glad you feel that way," Emily said sincerely. "We've always been close, and it hurt knowing I pushed you away." "Do you think you'll ever forgive Mom?" she asked cautiously. "She's struggling. She's lost weight, barely leaves the house." When rumors about Frank having an STD spread, half the store freaked out. Turns out, he got it from the new cashier. Mom was the only manager on the list. It was humiliating. She came home crying more than once, but she's accepted that cheating on you was her biggest mistake. Jim sighed. Emily, your mother and I were partners. That means honesty and trust. I don't trust her anymore. I figured, Emily replied, grinning. Especially after meeting your poolside fan club. It was a little awkward having so many women ask me about you. From the way they talked, I'd say at least 4 of them are more than friends. My dad, the condo Casanova. They think you're this sensitive, honest, good-looking guy who's great in bed, she teased, nudging him playfully. I don't know about all that, Jim chuckled. I've got a couple of friends who stop by, but I don't think they see me as anything special. I'm just available. Mom really messed up, Emily said, shaking her head. Can I move in with you after I graduate? I want to find a summer job here and maybe go to college nearby. If I can't commute, can I at least spend weekends and holidays with you? Things with Mom just aren't the same. Her betrayal hit me harder than I realized. Jim didn't hesitate. He was happiest when Emily was around, and watching her grow into an independent young woman brought him joy. After she left for spring break, they spoke several times a week. Emily insisted Jim skip her graduation but promised to visit Florida the next day. On Sunday afternoon, Jim opened the door, expecting to see Emily, but it was Helen. He stood frozen for a moment, unsure how to react, but finally managed to compose himself. Come in, Helen, he said, his voice neutral. Can I get you something to drink? Thanks, Jim. I'd like that, Helen replied, following him into the kitchen. Jim poured iced tea for them both and sat across from her. I was going to pick up Emily, Helen began, but she told me she's moving in with you. I transferred my job to Daytona. We need to figure out what to do with the house. You haven't filed for divorce yet, and we haven't really talked, so I don't know where you stand. Why are you moving here? Jim asked, genuinely surprised. What do you expect to happen? Well, for starters, I'm done freezing every winter, Helen said weakly. And with Emily going to college here, I don't have much reason to stay up north. Just more gossip and judgment. I don't know what Emily told you, but your parents won't speak to me, and mine aren't much better. I've let a lot of people down, especially you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. Helen's eyes dropped. I need a fresh start where people aren't gossiping about me. I'm just glad I didn't pass anything to you. I think you'd already stopped sleeping with me by the time Frank gifted me that surprise. She sighed. I've tried blaming everyone, Frank, the cashier, even the ladder he fell off. But it all comes back to me. I destroyed our marriage and nearly ruined Emily's relationship with you. She warned me about Frank, but I didn't listen. Helen paused, her voice softening. I'm grateful you let Emily back into your life. Your love means everything to her. It meant the world to me before I lost my way. Now that I don't have it, I'd give anything to get it back. But I know that's not how this works. We should probably figure out what to sell and split the money. I thought you'd already filed for divorce. Isn't Frank single now? Jim asked pointedly. He is, but I don't care about him, Helen shot back. I might have been a fool, but I'm not dumb enough to divorce you for him. I thought you'd ended things after everything I did. I'm pretty content with my life here, Jim said. I hate change, and divorce is a big change, but yeah, we should probably talk about it now. I'd like to stay married, Helen admitted quietly, even though I know I don't deserve it. I always thought you'd never find out, but you did. Where are you staying tonight? Jim asked. We've got time to sort things out over the next couple of weeks. I'll find a motel near Highway 95, Helen said. It's close to the Home Depot where I'll be working. Emily's out grocery shopping to give us time to talk, but she'll be back soon, so I should head out. Emily's room has 2 beds, Jim offered. You can stay there if she's okay with it. Won't that be uncomfortable for you? Helen asked cautiously. I know I'm not exactly your favorite person right now. I'll be fine if Emily doesn't mind, Jim replied. We'll ask her when she gets back. Emily had no problem with her mom staying in her room for a while. Over the next few days, they all fell back into their old routines. Jim steered clear of the pool and his female neighbors while Helen was around. He wasn't about to make things more uncomfortable. One evening, after Emily left for a concert, Helen spoke up. Some of the women at the pool keep asking when I'm leaving, she said dryly. They've been talking about your big bowl of rubbers and which ones they like. It's actually kind of funny. They seem to blame me for ruining their fun. 4 women, Jim? Color me impressed. It's too bad I didn't leave that kind of impression on you before Frank showed up. I'm not apologizing for pleasing these women, Jim shot back. They're all single, and they know the deal. I give as much as I get, and they're happy with it. What about having some fun with me? Helen suggested, her voice soft. No strings attached. I feel like I owe you after everything I put you through. I'm not the same guy you remember, Jim warned. I'm more direct now. I tell these women exactly what I want, and they love it. No one stays for more than a night. Then give me 1 night, Helen whispered. I can handle whatever you throw at me. I just want to make things right. Jim thought it over. 10 minutes later, they were in his bed. Wow, Helen gasped afterward, catching her breath. That was incredible. You've definitely learned some new moves. Thank you, Jim. As Helen carried her clothes back to Emily's room, they heard her voice from down the hall. Could you keep it down next time? I'm trying to sleep, Emily called out, teasing. Helen stayed through the summer, sleeping in Emily's room but often visiting Jim at night. She'd claim he was the only man she'd ever want, and Jim would nod without making any promises. Jim noticed Helen counting the rubbers in his bowl, clearly trying to compete with the other women for his attention. But when she'd come home from work to fresh sheets and fewer rubbers, it was clear he wasn't sticking to their arrangement. Despite her attempts, Helen couldn't ignore the fact that the other women were still part of the picture. At the pool, they weren't outright rude, but their subtle remarks stung Helen. Did you help Jim pick out that new blue bedding? Susan Struthers asked one morning, her smile a little too knowing. It matches the curtains perfectly. Yes, it's a great color, Monica Barron added, her tone playful. Very masculine, just like Jim. That night, Helen confronted him. Jim, you don't need those women, she whined. I'll give you all the sex you want. Isn't that enough? Exactly, Jim said with a grin. I'll never need them again. Then why are there 2 fewer rubbers today? And why does everyone know what color your sheets are? Helen asked, narrowing her eyes. Jim just smiled. I have no idea. Jim sat on his balcony, the humid Florida air thick with the scent of the ocean, the rhythmic crash of waves in the distance offering a strange sense of solace. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, watching the way the moonlight cut through the whiskey, much like the clarity that had settled over him in the past few months. Helen was still around, still trying to reclaim a piece of what she had lost, but Jim wasn't the same man anymore. The past no longer had a chokehold on him. He had spent years believing in a reality that had crumbled beneath him, and now he was free to build something new on his terms. Emily had settled into her college courses nearby, and their relationship had slowly begun to mend. She visited often, bringing stories of campus life, new friends, and dreams of the future. She no longer walked the tightrope between her parents, nor did she try to fix what had been irreparably broken. She simply enjoyed their time together, and Jim did too. As for Helen, she lingered like a ghost of a past life, flitting in and out of his space, hoping for redemption in moments that could never erase what had come before. Jim gave her civility but nothing more. He had no room for nostalgia. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Jim sat across from Helen at a small seafood shack near the water. She twirled her straw between her fingers, her voice softer than it had been in years. I miss you, Jim, she admitted. Not just what we had, but you, the way you used to look at me. Jim leaned back, considering her words. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't even sad. He just wasn't. I looked at you that way because I trusted you, he said simply. And now I see you for who you are, and I see myself for who I became because of it. A flicker of regret passed through Helen's eyes, but she didn't argue. She couldn't. That night, Jim returned home, kicked off his shoes, and settled onto the couch. His phone vibrated with a message from Susan, asking if he wanted to meet for drinks. He smiled, shaking his head. The old Jim would have jumped at the offer, eager to fill the void with fleeting distractions. But this new Jim, he was learning that peace wasn't found in another person's arms. It was found within himself. He stood, stretched, and walked to the balcony, letting the ocean air wash over him. Tomorrow was another day, another chance to live on his own terms, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough.